I say that like, this isn't my chair. Just east of Arlington, in a couple miles.
This is the new facility. I truly want to This is built all the way over.
Well, I'm sure. That's very
Right now, we're
Good evening, all. My watch says it's 6 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and get started. First of all, can those in the back hear me okay? Good to go. All right. Well, students, parents, patrons, teachers, administrators, all welcome to the October meeting of Bennington Board of Education. A couple of housekeeping items. Dr. Calderon is out traveling today, so I'll be chair of the meeting this evening. And our meeting, as always, is conducted in accord with the Nebraska Open Meetings Act, the provisions of which are posted in the back of the room. We always start our meeting time with public forum, which is the opportunity for public to share their thoughts on topics that are on their mind. If you do wish to participate in public forum this evening, we ask that you fill out one of the yellow sheets. Jody's got a copy of one there. There are others in the back of the room. Just kind of covers the policies around open forum and helps us kind of keep an order to the speaking. If you do want to participate in public forum, you'll have about 5 minutes. I'll give you a friendly 1 minute reminder when your time remains, but in respect for others who may wish to participate in public forum, we do ask you to keep your comments to 5 minutes. Also, by way of setting some expectations, this is the board's opportunity to listen to you. So the board at this time won't engage in discussion or question answering. But if you do have questions, we'll do our level best to refer those to somebody who can give you a timely answer. So with that, do we have anyone, Jody, who'd like to speak in public forum this evening?
Tracy.
Tracy, welcome.
Hey, you, Mark. This is mostly directed at you. Your words last month were nothing short of being admitting to being a coward. You sit there and lecture those in favor of masks about not producing worthy authority to issue a mandate lies for school districts. But looking around, it appears many districts have done that in spite of your lame excuse that you hide behind. Since OPS, the largest school district in the state, along with Westside, Ralston, Papillion, Grand Island, and I don't know how many others, have put a mandate in place, I don't think it's a matter of authority. It's a matter of, as Westside Superintendent stated, being in the business of protecting kids, which you have proven over and over again you are not. You also lectured those about working with local and county authorities to put those mandates in place. Let me see, Mark, I don't live in Omaha. I have no representation on the Omaha City Council. I don't live in Bennington. I don't have any representation on the Bennington City District Council either. And unless you were blind to the news of what was going on as of the last board meeting, Dr. Hughes did try to pass a mandate. And if it wasn't for our shameful governor denying it, maybe that would be put in place. So I'm not quite certain what else you would have us do. Our governor is basically flying under the radar with his policies. And you can see that Reynolds and Abbott are losing their battles to try to enforce bans on masks in schools put in place because it puts students and the public at risk. School and school boards were the very last on a long line of others kicking the can down the road and pointing fingers as to who should put a mandate in place, and you failed significantly. You also accused districts of hiding their mandates behind their dress code policy. I'm not completely sure which districts you were speaking of, but I spoke directly with OPS, Ralston, Westside, Grand Island, Papillion, district representatives, and none of them included this in their dress code. It was simply a mandate put in place. Now, districts in Texas were doing this to get around Abbott's executive order. So again, unlike you whining about authority, those who chose to put children first were doing whatever means necessary to protect their kids, unlike you. You are so worried about the authority that you do have, that you have the Nebraska Department of Education sending memos to superintendents specifically calling out the COVID Liability Act signed into law in May that provides civil protections, quote, if substantial compliance with any federal public health guidance was followed. You see, mandates is not called out there. They use the term guidance. And as we all know, but I'll say it again, guidance from the CDC, American Academy of Pediatrics, UNMC, and the Douglas County Health Department recommends everyone K through 12 wear a mask. In addition, the NDE's memo from September also stated those age through age 12 should be mandated to wear a mask as well. You want to talk about worry? That's what you should be worried about, because that is exactly what I told Dr. Hawk I would do if my daughter were to come into contact with COVID at school. Use this liability act as an opportunity to sue you. Maybe next time you should be better versed on what you are saying. And speaking of lawsuit, I came close to that opportunity since my daughter was in the 5th grade classroom at Pine Creek that was shut down the week before last. So as I sat here in July asking for masks in at least elementary school, since these kids can't be vaxxed, and told you about her constant struggles with upper respiratory infections and bout and after bout of pneumonia, I'm sure you all thought my worries were unfounded. Well, thank God somebody was watching out for us when we decided to homeschool. Thank God she wasn't there. But since we are dual enrolled with the district, it still came to my attention that during the week her classroom was closed, her teacher remained in the building per isolation policy. Funny enough though, rather than isolating, her teacher was willing to make me copies of math test scores and leave them in the office. When I questioned the principal as to why he was allowed in the building, I was told it was district policy for the teacher to stay on school grounds but isolate. But I told her that he clearly wasn't. Rather than admitting a problem and saying she would address it, she said to contact the district office. So I did. Dr. Hawk said he would discuss this with the teacher, but how sad and pathetic that those that command rules to be followed by young students or within their four walls can't follow rules themselves. I find this appalling. A rule in particular, again, that is meant to keep kids safe, which is nothing you are interested in. Let me finish by pointing out we ended up September nearly 4 times the cases as the prior year. What an accomplishment to be proud of. Last year's school year, 60% of the cases were at junior and senior high levels, while now, shockingly, 60% are now at the elementary, at those ages that can't be vaccinated. And it's sad on your watch you are fine with sick young children filling your schools and still refuse to do anything about it. Sad that per the Nebraska Association School Board Code of Conduct, you are failing miserably at, quote, considering the needs of the community and vote for what is best for students. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in public forum this evening? Hearing none, we will proceed with the business of the board by calling the meeting to order at, let's call it 6:08. First order of business for the board is our consent agenda. As tonight on the consent agenda, we have the approval of minutes from our regular meeting from September 13, along with the hearings associated with that meeting, October bills, and a non-resident request. Allison and I reviewed bills tonight. Allison, do you have anything you wanted to highlight?
I don't.
I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Moved by Kara to approve the consent agenda. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Allison. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, please call the roll.
Heather,
Yes.
Allison,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Carol.
Yes.
From there, we will proceed to our administrative reports, and our usual custom is to start with elementary.
Good evening, it's me tonight. We just have two things to highlight from the elementary board report. We have parent-teacher conferences this week, and we'll be offering in-person and virtual, so we're excited to have families back in the building. And secondly, we had our elementary fundraisers, so you can see some pictures there of some of the fun we had. It was absolutely amazing what our community and families put together for what we were able to raise for our buildings to go right back to our students. So we had some color bombing and some dunk tanking going on for a little bit of fun incentives. So thank you to everybody who was involved with that. Any questions tonight?
If no questions, thank you. Middle school's next.
Thank you. I'll just one highlight, the big one for us was Joe Beckman came to speak to our students. We've been waiting 3 years for this to happen as our PTO, our district, and our foundation helped fund him to come. His message was wonderful, just being a difference maker, and that's something we've been able to embed into some of our homeroom lessons, student support lessons, and hopefully, I think as we grow middle school too, Mr. Beckman is someone we would like to bring back, and I think each year, ideally. I think it's more impactful for kids once they know and are familiar with someone, rather than just a random person each year. So I think he's someone we would like to bring back based off the feedback from staff and students. So it was a great day for kids.
Thank you. Any questions on the middle school report? On to high school.
High school will be brief. Had some pictures of homecoming this last week, very successful week of homecoming. Also have a couple pictures with our softball team hosting a district softball tournament, both the sub-district softball tournament last Monday and then the district final this last Friday. Our team did win and qualify for state. They'll be in Hastings on Wednesday at 11:30. Our golf team has also qualified for the state golf tournament, our girls golf team. And they are in Scotts Bluff as we speak on day one. That's where the state golf tournament was this year, was in Scotts Bluff. So they headed out on Sunday and got in about 4:30 yesterday. Are competing today. Had kind of a tough day today, but they are able to come back tomorrow and have day two, and have all the students back on Wednesday. So just some activities at the state level that we have at the high school right now. Questions?
And good luck to them all.
On to student services. Whitney, glad to see you back. We missed you last month.
I'm here for good now, probably. I did mostly my updates gonna be on special education numbers. So I gave you kind of the 5-year trend of what we're seeing, and we are seeing an increase in special ed numbers across the district. This year, we had a lot of new students move in that had IEP. So typically, we have 12 to 13% of the new student population, which matches our special ed population move in. This year, 20% of our new students had IEPs, so we're just seeing our numbers grow and probably from the great services they're all getting. Do you have any questions?
We'll proceed to curriculum then.
Good evening. I have lots of numbers for you tonight. I'm going to start with the middle graph there that talks about the services that our students are receiving this fall. During the fall, we do map testing as well as benchmark testing to get a good read on what needs our students have across the district. And so we have several layers of support for students, and the IRIP is an individualized reading improvement plan that is mandated through the Nebraska Reading Improvement Act. And so students, the numbers of students that have IRIPs have been fairly consistent, even though we move that up grade each year for students who have not made grade level progress. I'd also like to highlight under curriculum for you, traditionally October is when we give our report on multicultural education progress. And as of last year, we decided to rework our policy and practices and work with a community group And so we had multiple meetings through the school year last year to have our community review our policy, review what activities and the process that we go through during the year to keep kids learning about other cultures. We've had the opportunity over the summer to take all of that input from the community and revise, do our first draft. That's been presented to our strategic goal number 4's group, as well as a high school group of students that met last week to review. So we're continuing to revise our work and we'll be bringing that to you later this school year. So those are my highlights for tonight. There's lots of graphs there to show you our progress comparatively over the year on our MAP scores. We've been watching that to make sure that COVID and the differences we've had in instruction haven't impacted us radically. We've been pretty stable in scores over 4 years. Typically, these scores can range anywhere from 8 to 15 points on any given day for standard deviation on a test. So we're pretty happy with that stability in scores for students. So any questions I can answer for you tonight? Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Hawk, highlights from the superintendent.
Yes. I'm going to take you down to the bottom. When we look at the assessed evaluation breakdown, it's broken down into many different parts and pieces. One of the things that's telling for the Bennington Public Schools is this 90.74. 90.74% of the assessed valuation, approximately half of the revenue for the annual budget, is residential. When you look at a state number, the state number for ag land and commercial together is about 50%. And yet, when you look at it for Bennington, it's about 8.5%. So when you look at residential for most other communities, it's in that 50 to 60%, where Bennington is 91%. So by all means, as we've talked about many, many years, that we would love to see commercial brought into Bennington Public Schools. It adds the value, and there are less students that come along with that. So this is the breakdown for 21, and I show you 5 years previous to that. And you can see ag land and commercial continues to go down. Any questions?
That concludes our administrative reports. So we move into committee reports, and the policy committee did meet. Again, in Valerie's absence, the update from the policy committee is, as many well know, we're wrapping up our policy manual review this evening with a revised and updated set of policies. The board now has an opportunity to look at its practices as a board, and the intention is to do a board development session around governance and communications and those kinds of things before the year is out. Formal plans for that are still being developed, but that is the intention. Additionally, the administration's met with the policy committee to review some alternatives and decision points around setting boundaries for our new elementary school and our new middle school. We'll continue to do work on that, and there will be community forums forthcoming on that in the near future as well. So any updates from Allison or Dr. Hawk that I missed there?
No, you mentioned it. We'll be going out to the community with the elementary and middle school boundaries in the next 2 to 4 weeks.
That'll be before the board in November then?
That is correct. The intention is that the administration would bring a proposed boundary or boundaries for both at the November board meeting with final decision at the December board meeting.
Thank
I believe all board members have been updated on the boundaries at this point in time.
Were there any other committee meetings we need to cover? On to the construction report then.
We have with us Mr. Bird. Mr. Bird.
Good evening. Going over each of the projects, we've had some very good construction weather recently. Start with middle school, moving very well through that, finishing up on the academic wing with roofing. Brickwork has continued to move around the building to try to get everything closed by the upcoming winter. Moving on to, and of course we have the following pictures. Elementary school, just about the same thing, just a little bit behind. We are still waiting for the roofing to show up, or basically the insulation. But interior work, we're hanging ductwork, installing electrical, concrete slab is going in. Anyone who's driven by, we also have a portion of the parking lot complete. Pine Creek is complete. We are closing that one out, and it is fully usable at this point in time. Road work is proceeding. We're paving as we go, installing site utilities. It's road work. It's pretty fun to watch, but nothing much you can really see. The high school stadium project, we are pouring sidewalks around the concession stand and working with the addition up by the athletic field. So everything's going according to a current schedule, and we should be done on contract time. Any questions?
I do want to take you back. This is the middle school gym floor. I looked at progress meetings from middle school 1 to middle school 2. This gym floor for middle school number 1 was being poured in May of middle school 1. This gym floor, if it's not poured today, will be poured this week. October to May is quite a big difference. And so I fully expect both elementary number 5 and middle school number 2 to be operational when they open next August. And that is good contractors, good weather, and to a certain extent, you know, we have done this more than once. So that's all we have for you.
Any other questions? Mr. Bird, thank you.
Thank you.
We also have a coordinator report on facilities. Is Mr. Edens or his designee?
Dr. Hawk will be his designee. Mr. Edens is out today. One of the things we try to do, and this for new board members, this might be something of interest to you, is we try to create a life expectancy of some of the things that we know are part of capital improvements. For example, carpet, roofs, sometimes windows, including doors, things of that nature. So as you can see, when we look at the high school, for example, roof section number 1 as the top one, life expectancy, 0 in the red. And that was built in 2005, anywhere from 15 to 20 to 25 years that goes along with that. So we are adding to those things. Those are things that are upkeep and can be brought to the board at any time. Another big one besides the things you see are some of the things you do not see. And that is, for example, tonight, climate controlled room. May be warm at times with lots of people, but HVAC equipment usually lasts anywhere from 15 to 20 years. Those can be expensive items. There are times when you're looking at bond issues that you add some of these items into that bond issue because you cannot afford them during a general fund budget year. Most of your monies for the annual budget go into people. And there's very little room for things as an air conditioning unit or carpet that need to go a part of that. We do have monies in there, but sometimes not enough. So Mr. Edens has created this life expectancy for the different buildings. You can see if it's a younger building that it has a lot of green that are going to be a part of that, and that's for your purview as you move forward. Okay. Are there any questions for the facilities and operations budget. This is on your Sparks data for you to see.
So that is stuff that is being fixed or we are going to fix?
No, either one. This is life expectancy. So for example, the one here, you got 17 years. You don't have to look at that for another 17 years. So if it's in the red, it probably should be considered for bond issue or for general fund coming out. My apologies, I didn't make that clear.
Any other questions on the facilities report? Thank you. I'll tell Mr. Edens what a fine job you did. 5 years ago, when we when we opened the middle school, we were also transitioning from a junior high to a middle school concept, the implementation of which was new and important, and we've continued to try to improve upon that theme. So I've been looking forward to this update on middle school philosophy.
All right, thank you very much. It is hard to believe it's been 5 years, so I'm excited to kind of share, I guess, where we were and where we're at 5 years later. So mission statement, as you can see, and our vision, learn, grow, lead, are two things that's very embedded into our day-to-day. We actually have Learn, Grow, Lead awards for our students that our staff write handwritten notes to kids every 12 weeks that go home in the mail. And we celebrate those students. It's really character, leadership, if they're growing and leading. And so it's not just a vision statement that we put on the wall, we actually live it and breathe it, which I think is very, very cool to our building. The things I'm going to talk about tonight are really when the middle school was, I guess, designed and kind of the philosophy wrapped around it. A lot of that work happened before I was hired. And so I was blessed to get hired a year early to help try to carry a lot of these things out. But it was really we behind all of this, school board support, the district, our staff to make this thing happen. And so when I talk about these pieces tonight, it's really from the middle level association, the key concepts that need to be in a middle school to really make it successful. So the first one talks about staff development, team planning time, and flexible scheduling. Not going to read each one of those, but this does walk through kind of our team plan time and what happens. It's very structured. It has counselors, administrators, teachers around the table, special education teachers. And I think this is maybe the key thing that really moves the needle in a middle school. We get to know our kids, we know how to support them, and we can meet them where they're at. 2018-19 was year 2 of the middle school. AQuest rating of the state was an excellent rating. They have not done that since 2018-19. But I think this piece here was a big reason why we were able to get that excellent rating, which we were all very proud of. Continuing with curriculum instruction assessment, one piece I would say that we're continuing to grow in is just finding more cross-curricular activities that we can do with kids. We were in a good place, then COVID hit and we had some different focuses, but this is an area we definitely want to do a little bit more with as we move into our second middle school. Continuing with curriculum instruction assessment, this part here, a rigorous curriculum that is challenging, exploratory, integrative, and relevant for all students. I think the one I want to highlight tonight is those exploratory classes. When we go to other middle schools or I go to meetings and get to talk with other administrators, that piece, obviously our curriculum is very strong and there's a lot of great layers to it, but our exploratory opportunities for kids in middle school are second to none. They get a lot of opportunities that many other kids do not, so we're very, very proud of that. And that also extends outside of the school day with a lot of different clubs that kids can partake in to, find their niche, which is so important at that age. Leadership and organization, a leadership team that stays abreast of and actively implements the core middle school concepts, including teaming, student advocacy, and exploration and transition. A couple I want to highlight here tonight. is teaming. So since we've been open, we've had teams of 2, we've had teams of 3, we've had teams of 5 teachers. We can make all of those work. The key though is that teaming and that time to get to talk about kids, how to support them, whether they're struggling with academics or behaviors, or if they're very, very high level, and how do we continue to push them. So that team time is incredibly important to middle school. And then another thing I think our district does very well, K-12, is transitions. And within our middle school, we do put a lot of time and effort into transitioning those 5th graders to 6th grade, and not just students, but parents too. So we want to make sure that we have those meetings and those opportunities to make sure parents are comfortable. We do our jump start in the summer, which is so important. And then our 8th to 9th transitions, I think, continues to get better each year. Dr. Blumenkamp and I are always talking on how to help our 8th graders transition as well as possible. So those are a couple highlighted areas there. Here for a process to review, revise, and affirm the vision and mission statement. What we put in here tonight is just, after our first year, we did the Advanced Ed survey for staff, parents, and students. You can see the 2017 number, and then on the left are the current from last February. I think we did it last February. So you can see we weren't really sure what to expect in a COVID year, but you can see a couple of them went up, the student went down just a little bit, but you can see the ones that were ranked the highest, the ones that were the lowest. We look at this with our staff, obviously to highlight the good things, but try to take the feedback and see how do we make it better. So if our, parents want teachers to keep us more informed, what else can we do to make that happen? And continue to get that feedback, because it's very important for us as we move forward. Continuing with leadership and organization, our schedule is vital to what we do. It allows us to be flexible. I know my first year at the high school in the 7-12 building, if we tried to do something with 7th and 8th grade, it kind of wrecked everything for the rest of the building. So in middle school, you can flex it as needed for those Joe Beckman assemblies, testing days, things like that. When you look at this part, I think common plan time is very, very important. We have put a lot of time and effort into behavior and academic interventions for our kids. The one I want to highlight tonight is the academic and behavior interventionist. We're in year 2 of that. We have a lot of data to show that that is really working for us. Mr. Affelbeck runs that program at our middle school. He delivers interventions to kids for math and reading, but he also is doing interventions with behavior. So if we do have, it could be a minor behavior thing that maybe Mr. Wilson or Mrs. Rucker and I work with a student, but then Mr. Affelbeck has time and student support to work with those kids a little bit more. If a kid is in there for behavior, maybe it's in school suspension or things like that, consequence is a piece of it, but we want to make it a teachable moment for those kids. And he has an opportunity to work with them a little bit deeper than we were able to before. So that has really moved the needle in our building. I think it's really helped some kids behavior-wise take that next step, and I think is a vital piece to why our middle school is as successful as it is. Continuing on to culture and community characteristics, having an adult advocate, if you look at middle school, is a huge piece. And so we try to have a daily homeroom. We don't try, we do have a daily homeroom where kids have the same teacher every day that hopefully they're building a connection with. So if they are struggling with something or something's going on at school, we hope they let their parents know and parents let us know. Sometimes the students can let us know, but sometimes it's the adult they feel comfortable with at school that they can say, hey, this is going on at school, can you help me out? So that connection, that adult advocate is a big deal. The other piece in our building, our counselors are awesome. They really are as good as it gets. One of the things they do, every time a student is in their office, they track it and they code it and they can tell, is it for academics? Was a student in here because of peer social relationships? What was it? And then we look at the end of each Hexer and see, okay, we had 15 kids struggling with maybe parents who are going through a divorce right now. And so maybe they will have a group that they work with, a small group that kind of work with those kids to help them as much as they can. So they really create those small groups off of the data that they collect each Hexer. Health and wellness system. I've been in 5 different districts in my career. I don't think there's a better one than in Bennington. C on there, Arbor Family, is something that is so important, and we have so many families taking advantage of that, whether it's every week at the school, or maybe something comes up and they get 2 free visits to go there to work with them. That is incredibly supportive for these families. So I can't thank our board and district enough for keeping that and adding services to that. The other thing that's a little bit unique to our middle school is the 18 weeks of PE. Sometimes you'll see middle schools do maybe a 12-week rotation where kids get 12 weeks of PE the first 12 weeks of school, then they don't get it the rest of the year. We have it every other day, and that is so important for those kids to get that activity, which is just good for them. And our schedule, it works where after lunch, kids can go in the gym and get some physical activity. I think that is so important as well. It just, for those kids to get movement and things like that are very important. Continuing with just how do you get community? How do you get parents into your building? Here's just a list of some things. I think one thing, we always talk about COVID and some of the negative things to it. But as you see this year in all of our buildings, we are offering in-person and remote conferences. And I don't think we would have ever thought about that if COVID would have happened. Now, when I surveyed parents a couple weeks ago, I think I got 600 responses. I said, would you prefer to, do you want in-person? Would you want online? Almost 35% of our parents picked online. So I think it's something out of COVID that's been good, is that we're listening to them and we're providing that opportunity for online and in-person conferences. As you can see, there's a lot of other stuff that we try to do to engage and get parents in, from sporting events to concerts to art extravaganzas. But I think student-led conferences, as I spoke to, and then just those transition pieces for kids. We try to bring our community in during the year as well. I know our science department has brought in meteorologists, eye doctors to work with kids. 3 years ago, we had a college and career readiness day where I think Mr. Byers came and spoke to. We had 20 or 25 people come on that day. So we want to try to do something like that again this spring with our students. I think that was a powerful day. We have so many people in the community that have so many great careers that they can come talk to students about. The last slide, oftentimes people will ask me, what are the critical elements of a middle school? So I put a lot of stuff up there that are critical of any school. But the ones I would say italicized for middle school, the student support time we have, we're supporting kids, we're infusing HAL activities for kids are so important. The team planning time, data team meetings, and there's just those achievement and recognition opportunities for kids that are so important because they're developing at such different rates at this age. We want to celebrate those achievements for those kids. So that is a quick overview of our middle school. Can I answer any questions that you guys might have?
No, Quentin, that seems too easy.
I appreciate it, thank you.
No, not a question, but just want to applaud the team for the passion with which they've embraced this philosophy and the enthusiasm with which they try to keep improving it. So good luck to you all. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We'll move to our strategic planning update. This month, we are updating on goal 1, which is 21st century skills.
All right, I'll start us off. So we're going to provide you an overview of our goal 1, which is 21st century skills. Mr. Hoppus, Dr. Willingham, and myself lead this goal. This is our strategic planning team. We appreciate the perspective of everybody within this committee, as that is the only way that we can move forward as we work through our objectives. So goal number 1 is focused on preparing our students to learn and work in the 21st century. And we started with our first objective that we were going to prepare a working definition of our 21st century skills. And so we worked with Sue Beers, helped us define the definition of all of the skills we wanted to focus on in Bennington. And so we developed that teaching and learning vision. We described what it would look like for our students. We identified what those skills were, and we brought that to the board. That has been completed. The second part of our objective was that we were going to complete a curriculum audit and analyze those results and share what improvements and focuses we can move forward with. This is just a visual that we have a lot of our skills that we identified already within our curriculums, and so that felt good that we were already including that into our daily lessons. But from that, we asked some teachers to submit some lessons during the 2015-16 school year, and so we walked away with 194 different lesson plans focused on those 21st century skills. So if there were a time in which those were needed to be added in a little bit more explicitly, we had a bank of lessons to draw from. The third piece of our objective was that we were going to take all of our findings and our recommendations back to our community and get some feedback. We presented this 3 C's to students and parents at a college information night. We also presented all of our findings to teachers and the public, and through all of that, we developed a common language within our staff and our students. So the visual that you see up here is a poster that you will see within our buildings, just so that we are walking the walk and talking the talk, and we're all using that common language as we grow together in some of those skills. We also have a homeroom audit that we use within our community circles in elementary, the middle school and high school use during their homeroom to make sure that some of those skills are being explicitly taught. And then within our talent ed appraisal system and our evaluations, we talk about the different ways that 21st century skills is present in their instruction.
Objective 1.4, continue to update the evolving curriculum addressed with our 21st century skills. On our curriculum days, we have grade level summer meetings and our curriculum day at the end of the school year. Specific lessons by grade as far as consistency, skill checklists, our skill and language development, again, the 3 C's that Molly talked about. We continue to revise and update the 3 C's opportunities for students, the menu that we provide. And then in our homeroom, we will do a self-evaluation again this year at the end of the school year for students to be able to determine where they feel they're at as far as their 21st century skills. At the elementary, we, 3 times a year, send out the rubric that has teacher feedback for each student in their class. At the middle school, it's done twice at parent-teacher conferences. Those just went out here just this last week. And at the high school, we do the same thing. We were the last to get on board at the high school with these skills. We're able to find some time to be able to do that effectively with our early outs. So again, appreciate the early outs that are still on our schedule to be able to allow our teachers to do this. Our parent-teacher conference information at all 3 levels went out here just this last week and will be discussed tomorrow night and Wednesday night. As we are in our accreditation process, this is just an example at the high school. We went in for our school improvement plan and used our 21st century skills strategic planning action plans to demonstrate what we were doing as far as a school building. If you look on the left-hand side with activities, they're similar to some of the activities that Molly and I have talked to you about here tonight, just a little bit more specific at the high school level. One of the things that we did this last month, or this last semester, is we had Sue Beers come in. She was with us when we started our implementation of 21st century skills. Was really kind of our guiding beacon as we started. After 5 or 6 years of working on this, district office had a great idea to bring her back and have her listen to where we're at and provide us feedback. I reached out to her this last week and said, can you kind of give us an idea or a testimonial of where you feel we are as a K-12 district in Bennington when it comes to 21st century skills. And I know you can read, but I'll read it just because of the camera and maybe they can't see what it says up there. Her testimonial says, I'm amazed and delighted at the perseverance and skill level at which the Bennington Public Schools has embraced and implemented 21st century skills. When I worked with the district 5 years ago to define these skills, I was impressed with the enthusiasm that was shown, but quite frankly, there have been many other schools that have started with great enthusiasm for 21st century skills and then failed to fully integrate them into the classroom and the curriculum. Not the case with Bennington. Bennington's continued effort not only to implement the skills, but to assess student growth around these skills puts Bennington in the top 3 to 5% of all districts I've followed in truly making 21st century skills a priority. And I've worked with districts across the United States and overseas as well. Kudos to the staff, administration, and the board for continuing to make the skills a priority and for providing professional development and time to bring them into practice. I thought that was pretty powerful to have her come back and say that. And as we've said in our meetings here and in our presentations over the last couple of years, we feel like we're in a spot with this skill that we are living and breathing it on a consistent basis and able to reevaluate efficiently to make changes as needed each year that we're in this process. She did also say on another note, I wanted to share with the board and the staff that at Bennington, they presented themselves as one of the most professional groups with which I've had the honor to work with. Their attentiveness at the in-service, combined with their professional dress and decorum, show that they are consummate learners and caring educators. Their attitudes and actions demonstrated a real interest in students and their education. So I wanted to share. She wanted me to have to share that with you tonight, so I wanted to do that. That is our strategic plan goal number 1 update. Questions for either Molly or Sean or myself?
Not a question, but just an acknowledgement. Kind of from what Mr. Hoppus addressed too, I would just like to thank you administrators for the efforts that you're putting into the whole health perspective for our students. Noticing that we are trying to bring in the behavior components as well as recognizing the environment that might be different for each learner and trying to keep the physicality and the community parent involvement involved in all of that as well as keeping education the number 1 priority. Thank you.
Thank you, and congratulations on the good feedback. I'm sure you'll take it as a challenge to keep moving forward in that direction. That concludes our reports for this evening, which moves us to unfinished business. And we do have a handful of construction change orders. Dr. Hawk, could you update us on those?
Yes, my apologies. We have 4 this evening, 1 at Bennington Elementary, number 5, and 3 at the expansion of the high school stadium and school sites. So a lot of times when you're going through areas and you do different elevations, the city comes in and suggests and makes changes to you. That is certainly elementary number 5. Fire hydrant replacement, you're also dealing with utilities. So as MUD came out and inspected something, they said, lo and behold, we don't meet code as was instituted in 2005. Therefore, fire hydrant replacement. Concrete is that around the storm drains in the parking lot. Some of that had crumbled and deteriorated. So it was best, rather than put new parking lot around it, that you replace some of that was in there. And then the light poles itself, this was an omission. And as a good neighbor and a good steward, we decided not to keep the contractor at bay for all. And we split that 33 and 66% basically. So these are lights that will go in on the plaza in or around the high school stadium. Those are the 4. The motion is before you.
Chair would accept a motion regarding the change orders.
I so move to approve all the items listed for construction. Change orders for the cost of $27,003.96.
Motion by Tim, is there a second?
Heather, second.
Thank you, Heather. Any further discussion on this item? Jody, please call the roll.
Mark,
Yes.
Kara? Yes. Heather? Yes. Allison?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Motion is approved. Next, we have an update on our return to learn plan. Dr. Hoagie.
Thank you. We don't have much new to review with you this month. We've been maintaining our status right now. So just a reminder of where information can be found on our website. We have several people who have asked about other bits of information, whether it's additional resources about vaccines, additional resources of information, and all of that is available on our website, on our COVID site, under health resources and educational resources. So we want to make sure that we have all of the information that we have been provided available for our community. School operations is our main highlight tonight, and basically the only major change regards masking, and we're still following in our elementary buildings. If we have one case of COVID, the entire class will be in mass, and that continues if we have 2 cases in that 14 days. If 3 cases occurs within that same time period, we notify the health department, and they will confirm that we will have to shut the classroom or what kind of monitoring we need to do at that point. At the secondary school, if we contact trace with each case and then need to do some masking with that at times, depending upon what the health department recommends at that time. So this is our real change for you, and it really is no change that the only place that we mandate masks is when we have a live case in a classroom, and that's based on that spread to contain that as much as possible. When we go on field trips now, as those days are opening up and many opportunities are happening for students, we are following the protocols of the location that we're taking the students. So should it be a location that is asking everyone to mask, our students will be in mass for that field trip. So we're trying to be good citizens wherever we're attending along with that. We continue to encourage and support the vaccine efforts through the health department and Children's Hospital, and sharing information as that comes about for us. Our safety protocols remain the same in that layered facets that we have going on. This is an update for you as of early this morning of the number of positive cases we have within the district. So as of this morning, we had 10 active cases across our district. Absences, to let you know what's going on with that, whether a parent is quarantined the student because they've been exposed or a family member's been exposed. A parent can say, my child's staying home due to this reason. If we have to send a student home with symptoms, then we would log that as quarantine by school. And so you can see what we're looking at on number of days out of school and due to COVID quarantine. Next steps will continue. Yes, sir.
Sorry, clarifying, those were days.
These
Not
are days of
students.
absences. These are days,
Thank you.
yes. Okay, so overall, we're continuing to monitor each thing. We're continuing our layered prevention strategy, and we are supporting our community with information and sharing what we learn as we move forward on vaccines. So early dismissal time, as you've heard referenced several times, we're using that time to prepare for families, working with students, and overall professional development. We're really striving for that consistency in instruction, whether students are at home ill or whether they're in class. So, and then documenting our academic progress for everyone. So we continue to highlight our ESSER 3 funds, and our plan for those dollars will head toward new reading curriculum over the next 3-year period that we have to spend those dollars so that we can have the best high quality materials for our students to make sure that we're making progress and keeping everybody on grade level and successful as readers. So, but we are open to information if we should reconsider that. Both Mrs. Bagan and myself take input on these grants, so. That covers our report tonight, very limited new information, but if there's any questions anyone has, I'd be happy to answer them.
Hearing no questions, thank you, Dr. Hogan, for the update. We'll proceed to our second reading of our Bennington Public Schools policy. As I noted earlier, we're in the process of updating and revising our entire policy manual. And last month, we had a first reading of those policies. So before they're formally implemented, we need to do a second reading and then approve them this evening. Dr. Hawk, I'd ask you to, I know, you're scrolling through the volume of policies that we updated. Any notes or highlights you wish to give on this topic?
I think we have covered this not only in the August board meeting, but the September board meeting and now finalization. With a little bit of grace from the community, we're going to take this, board secretary and myself, section by section. We're going to make sure that all the red lines, all of these strikeouts are absent. We're going to add dates and policies one section at a time. We'll go in chronological order, going with the 100s and all the way to the 1000s. So we estimate, better yet, I estimate, and Jody will probably agree, that it will take about a month to get these uploaded to our system. So we will try to note when each section is new on the website. But you do have a motion this evening to approve approximately a little over 100 revisions and 40 new policies for the full board.
Thank you for that summary. And as Dr. Hawk mentioned, there is a motion before the board.
I move to revise all new and revised policies in the Bennington Public Schools Board Policy Manual as presented.
Motion by Karen, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Allison. Discussion. I guess I will note in Dr. Calderon's absence, an appreciation for her leadership on this topic. She was a significant driver in and had a significant passion around the district's need to do this. And I appreciate and applaud her efforts. So with that, please call the roll.
Heather? Yes. Allison?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Kara? Yes.
That brings us to new business, and we've got some action related to authorizing general obligation bonds this evening. Dr. Hawk.
Yes, and I'd like to invite Mr. Leffler up, please. Mr. Leffler is with Piper Sandler. He has been the representative for Bennington Public Schools in the issuance of bonds for over a decade, maybe closer to 2. And we have before you authorization this evening for approximately $36 million. Mr. Leffler, would you like to explain the details, please?
Certainly, thank you. Again, for the record, Bruce Leffler, Piper Sandler, Omaha, Nebraska. What we're looking at here is a bond resolution similar to what we've done in the past, authorize bonds not to exceed $36 million. Our intent of setting the bond issue up this way is we're actually anticipating being in the market after approval from the board. We'll be in the market with these bonds on Thursday of this week. And once we get the final sale Thursday, by the end of the day, then we'll finalize those bonds and those terms with the approval that we have from the board. The amount of $36 million we've set out there, so of the $72 million approved, most recently approved by the voters in the district, we issued essentially $27 million out of that tranche in 2020. We'll do the $36 million here, which that'll leave for, I'm anticipating about 15 months from now, will be the remaining 10, be shy of $10 million. So it'll be $9.5 million worth of bonds yet to be issued to complete that $72 million approval. As outlined in our parameters, bonds not to exceed 36 million, the final maturity not to exceed December 15th of 2047. Election probably be at June 15th of 46 on the final maturity. True interest cost not to exceed 3.5, we estimate that to be closer to 2.75. Certainly hope to be under that number. And the issuance cost to be approximately 1%, as it kind of has been on the last issues as well. We're laying these bonds out, quite frankly, a little bit, on an average life, a little bit longer to take advantage of the current interest rate environment that we are in, that we think is pretty attractive. What that'll leave us to do is, when we come back in the, next year with the remaining 10 million or less than 10 million to do, we'll basically set those bonds up probably over the 15-year period. So, in a raising interest rate environment, we're trying to mitigate rising interest rates on our remaining $10 million worth of bonds to be issued. So the average life on these bonds are a little bit longer than we may have seen in some other issues, but again, we're trying to capture, to borrow money over 25 years at less than 3% is just still kind of remarkable in the environment we're seeing. So we're trying to take advantage of that by taking those bonds longer in an interest rate environment we know where we're at. Upon final conclusion of the sale on Thursday afternoon, we would anticipate the authorization, the resolution authorizes the board president or the superintendent sign off on the final terms. We're assuming that Dr. Hoff will be available to sign off on those final terms for the board. This is probably, again, the process we used on the 2020 issue. We've used this process certainly in the past.
Mr. Leffler, what's the advantage of having bonds for sale less than 10 million?
Yeah, leaving the 10 million, bonds issued under less than 10 million are what's called bank qualified. So banks have an advantage to buy those bonds. What it really means is in Nebraska, when you have put banks in the environment to chase after the bonds that are being sold, you have the opportunity for the interest rate to be lower. So, rather than leave $11 million of the bonds out for the last term, we want to make sure we're going to have less than 10 million to issue in that next tranche, try to again mitigate any changes we might see in interest rates between then and now. So don't pick the market, but we at least like to provide the opportunity to make the road rates lower.
The other side of that is that some of the items that are still left is district office expansion finish, but most of the rest is land. And so as we move forward, if we have necessary need for that, we will come back and do so at that time. But a lot of the projects, because we were in an environment, a very good environment for construction, and with the other items remaining, we do not see the need immediately for that additional 10 million. So it would be advantageous for us to wait a year to make sure that that would work for the district as well. So we are issuing enough money to pay our bills, but remaining should hit a favorable interest environment.
I guess the one question I'll ask for the board's purpose is why not issue all the bonds in a good environment that we think the interest rates involved. The math gymnastics that Dr. Hawk makes me go through is to show that the district can continue to levy the bond fund levy that's in place and cash flow the bonds that are issued. So you don't issue all the bonds at one time because now you have interest expenses loaded with that, and there's that delicate balance between do we wait longer to issue more bonds in an environment we don't know what the interest rates is versus how do we split that up so that it in turn matches the amount of money the district thinks they're going to spend within the next year or 18 months and trying to mitigate interest expenses not necessary at the time to keep the bond fund levy in place. So it's the duck on the water. There's a lot of numbers flashing underneath all those decisions that we seem to make on this. So.
We have a motion before the board.
I move to approve the resolution as presented to issue general obligation school building bonds series 2021A in a principal amount not to exceed $36 million. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Kara. Any discussion? Jody, please call the roll.
Kara?
Yes.
Heather? Yes.
Allison,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Mark.
Yes. Bruce, thank you.
All right,
as
thank you very
always.
much, appreciate
Thank
it.
you, Mr. Miller.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This evening, we also have a hardship request to consider.
We did put this on with the understanding that the hardship letter would come to us. It did not. Therefore, we asked the board to move forward. This is not an item for action at this point in time.
Very good. We shall proceed to our discussion on the annual report.
As you can see, the annual report is something that we mail out once a year. It is something that is sometimes confusing in that it is not present. It is the annual report for the previous school year. So we're gathering information at this point in time. We hope to have it out sometime in November. And that should be coffee table fodder for all the holidays as we move forward. If there's something that the board would like to see in terms of the annual report for the 2020-21 school year, please let us know.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Then we'll proceed to support staff resignations. We do have a few this evening, and so I would entertain a motion recognizing those.
Okay. I move to accept the resignations of Shelley Abbott, Tanya Siders, Linda Thacker, and Courtney Valkey
Close enough. Well done.
from their assignments with thanks for the years of service to the district.
Thank you, Heather. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Allison. Any discussion? Jody, please call the roll.
Allison,
Yes.
Tim.
Yeah.
Mark,
Yes.
Kara,
Yes.
Heather.
Yes.
Motion approved. We also have several support staff personnel set to join the district. I would entertain a motion recognizing that.
I move to accept the recommendation of the administration and approve the hiring of support staff personnel for the 2021-22 school year, pending background checks as presented. Odell Ford for route driver, Carrie Jones, administrative assistant to human resources, Megan Rathke, resource para, Kimberly Richmond, cook, Pamela Werner, cook, and Larry Baker, route driver.
Thank you, Kara. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Tim. Any discussion? Jody, please call the roll.
Heather,
Yes.
Allison,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Kara.
Yes.
Motion approved, and welcome to our new teammates. Traditionally, we do have a workshop in November for board and administrators to consider curriculum proposals and several other things.
Yes, we are making the same recommendation. It is usually 2 weeks following the regular meeting. This would be the Monday of the Thanksgiving break. That is, again, traditional at that time period. That's always debatable whether we start at 5 p.m. or 5:30. I would suggest 5 at this point in time. There may be some discussion on boundaries, although I attempt to have that at the 2 regular meetings. But we do have lots to discuss in terms of continued growth of the district and the next steps in terms of accommodating our student needs, possibly with facilities down the road. We always have a very healthy and good discussion with curriculum and personnel proposals. That is a part of this as well. Allison and Tim, you may remember that might have been your first meeting that you attended, and probably eye-opening at that. So,
Plenty of paper.
yes.
I'm going to give opportunity to any board members to, I guess I would ask, is that date and or time reasonable?
That looks good for me. And for me.
Then I move to set a special meeting for November 22nd, 2021 at 5 p.m. to discuss Bennington Public Schools' future growth. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Kara. Any further discussion? Jody, please call the roll.
Kara,
Yes.
Heather,
Yes.
Allison,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Yes. That concludes our formal business for this evening. To the students in the room, I'd like to congratulate you on your choice. We are well under the average board time. The next time for our regular meeting will be November the 8th at 6 p.m. In this location. With no other business, the chair would entertain a motion to adjourn. Thank you, Heather. A second? Second, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? This meeting is adjourned.
Wait for us.